Agree with Alan Greenspan, we ought to just eliminate the debt ceiling. Oh, absolutely. Here you go.
The ability of almost every working American to access more credit than they should have been able to masked the underlying fact that lower and middle class incomes were not rising.
That's not a tenable strategy. Isn't now the time to eliminate it? Oh, it would have been time a long time ago.
Let's put aside terrorism. Let's talk only about our own homegrown animals that are patrolling America right now. So it goes down to the simplest thing. Be prepared, be vigilant.
113 Mexican politicians have been killed since September. Welcome into the I Am Liberty show. Listen, for the faint of heart, for the folks who are still riding on the Father's Day high, you may not want to listen to this episode because while you were applauded just days ago for doing what you're supposed to do, this show will most likely dismantle most, if not all, of the comfort that you have about the life that you live and the situation that you're in. It's just time for one of those shows. You know, things reach a fever pitch in my mind, and then I get to a point where I can't take anymore. The New York Post reported that a Mexican politician who pledged to defy organized crime was shot dead as he posed for a picture with an admirer, according to reports. Mexico's political violence indicator released by the Etelec consultancy firms that Magana, I don't know how to pronounce the name, Roselay Donalou Magana, is the 113th politician or candidate to be killed since September 2017, less than a year. 113th politician. Political campaigns in Mexico are over on June 27th, 4 days before one of the country's most important general elections, in recent history to take place on July 1st. I'm laying a base, I'm setting a stage here for you. Okay, follow along. Proving the drug wars in working Mexico registered a record 29,168 homicides in 2017, which is the 11th year the country's crackdown on organized crime. Drug cartels are suspected in many murders of politicians would take place in regions already plagued by gang violence. We know what's going on. There is a dictatorship taking hold in Mexico. Why? The people of Mexico are being silenced and the drug cartels are running roughshod. Why? Why is it happening? Let's stop and just think for a moment. Why in the world could a proud people like the Mexicans have a nation where 113 politicians have been killed already in less than a year? That's less than a year. More than 1,000 candidates have dropped out of local races. Why is that happening? Tell me why. The murder of political candidates, quote, creates enormous insecurity which is felt and bemoaned by the public. And it's held up in the faces of the politicians for their incapacity to do anything about it, said Estevez. There's no bigger example of failure out here than that today. Now let's turn to the children and the broken families and the law-breaking families and the running away from Mexico. When you see a nation that has been overthrown by drug dealers, and that's exactly what Mexico is, you ask yourself, how can a people as proud as those from Mexico watch their nation fall? Watch their politicians slaughtered in the streets? Watch their political process melted down to nothing? You might say, oh, well, it's scary, you don't want to go up against the drug cartel. They're all coming here. They're all coming to our house. Don't you get it? That's the problem. For 20 years now, the leadership in America has been telling young men, family men, to come to America for a better life. The doors have been opened wide. And we've been letting people into this nation my whole life illegally. And you could say, oh, God, here we go. Here we go. A conservative or right-wing talking points, whatever you want to say that it is. Listen, I just want you to understand that when you listen to the I Am Liberty show, you're going to get a point of view that is not swung in one direction or the other, because I'm looking at this thing in the way that I look at all things. It's the eagle eye view, right? Take myself out. I don't espouse to any party. I take myself out and I look down on it from above, reading articles, watching videos, and starting to take an understanding of what the hell's going on. And what the hell's going on is you have a nation where the men who should be in the military, the men who should be defending the neighborhoods, the men who should be barbecuing these drug dealers in the streets, they're all here. They're cutting your lawn. They're making your pizza. They're sauteing your shrimp. They're picking your strawberries. You sucked all the life out of Mexico. You sucked all the security out of Mexico, and now the politicians are being murdered in the streets because people said that the best thing for Mexico was, to absorb all the people into America. We'll bring all the families here. Well, what's the most powerful thing in America? Come on, it was Father's Day just 3 days ago. What's the most powerful thing in America? Where is the most power lie? It's in the American family. Easily in the American family. You don't get a better... If you look at a cross-section of quality and performance and human beings working their hardest at their highest RPMs possible for the longest stints. I'm not saying all parents and all families are like this, but I'm saying this group above all are the ones that keep the wheels running. Do you think Mexican families are any different? Do you think Mexican working men are any different than American men? It's pretty much the same deal. You have a family, you want to protect it, you want to do right by it. The problem is these Mexican men, these Mexican families who've come to this nation over the last 20, 30 years have looked at two choices. One, stay here and figure out Mexico. Two, go to the land of milk and honey and milk it. And not all of them come here to milk it. I get that. But let's not say that none of them do. Don't you understand we have to look at this thing from both sides? I can't deal with people that are looking at things from one side only. Well, they all do this. Well, no, none of them do that. There's no criminals. They're all criminals. Well, the kids are actually terrorists with bombs in their backpacks. They're not really kids. It's all a, it's all a big, it's a photographed, a doctored photograph is what it is. If you want to get right down to it, the people of Mexico need to go to Mexico and fight a war, or there will be no Mexico. You follow me? Now, what we can't have happen is we can't have people come here from Mexico who abandon their nation and try to turn it into Mexico. Because there wasn't enough bravery in there. Well, this is the Mexican warrior. The Mexican warrior has been extracted from Mexico and is sitting on the IKEA couch watching the big screen TV when he should be out there with a tomahawk chasing these people down. But they're winning. They may have won. It may be over for Mexico. When you have a slaughter of politicians in your nation like the one that they're seeing in Mexico, it's hard to argue. Does Mexico come back from that? So when you talk to me about kids and you talk about border walls and you talk about immigration policies, if you want to look at it through a left versus right lens, you can say, we should just let everybody in here. We should just let everybody in here. Everybody deserves a chance. It should be fair. It should be equality. It should be, all the... You open up the glossary of liberal terms and boom, you find whichever one fits. Or then you can take the right-wing stance, which is almost as crazy. Shut the border. No one comes in. If they come in, they get thrown in jail. Whether they get thrown in jail here or in Mexico, they're still going to be separated from their kids, which is what I can't figure out, right? No. We have to stop propagandizing coming to America. And we have to work with Mexico to get them to understand that there's a war going on that has to be fought. But that, of course, would mean that you'd have to assume that the tentacles of the drug cartels don't go into our own government. That they don't reach into the pockets of our own officials. And that's a terrifying thought in and of itself. So if you really want to look at the issue of illegal immigration, think about the South American nations and the nightmare that they've become. And understand that this idea that people need to come here to escape something, this is my personal opinion. You may not agree with it. But this idea that people need to come here to escape something, we need to escape this regime, we need to escape this tyrant, we need to escape. No. That's not how great nations are built. That's how nations fall and die and disappear. What needs to happen is people need to stay in their nation and rise up and crush these monsters who are killing politicians in the street. They need to wipe out the gangs. They need to, well, whatever. Whatever. Is this what you want for the great Mexico? Is this what you want for the great warrior nation that it once was? 113 Mexican politicians have been killed since September. Don't talk to me about border crossings, and we're all sad about children being taken from their parents, all right? Nobody's saying anything that's magic. Oh my God, I don't believe. But what do you want to do? What is the alternative? People break the law, they get thrown in jail. You know, what really sickens me is this fact that ordinary citizens are criminals and criminals are fawned over in this nation anymore. That's the way I see it. Ordinary citizens are criminals and criminals are fawned over. Right? You have someone who comes into the nation, clearly breaks the law. It doesn't matter if you agree with the law or not. It doesn't matter. There's a time and place to battle that too. But the fact of the matter is they come in and break the law, and the whole of American society is weeping over the fact that these people came in here and broke the law and made a bad decision with their children's lives. They're pointing fingers at the GOP like the GOP were the ones who broke the law. Are they enforcing a shitty law? Yeah, I'd say it's pretty shitty. But what else do you do? What else do you do? Anybody who knocks up on the back door and has a kid, that means that they're a citizen of the United States. That's the alternative. Think that'll work out in the long run? How do you think that'll work out in terms of homeland security? How do you think that'll work out? The Mexicans need a civil war. They need one bad. I know that's an ugly thing to say, and it's a bloody, terrifying thing to live through. But when you have that kind of gang violence, 113 Mexican politicians killed since September 2017, listen, you're on the verge of losing it all. You're on the verge of losing the whole shebang and wading into a world of corruption that it's just not even there anymore. That the culture of Mexico will cease to be, and it'll become only a culture of despotism. And you think this is unique to Mexico, you would be very mistaken. I was talking to Papa Liberty, my father, on the phone. And thank God I don't live up there next to New Jersey, because it seems like New Jersey's completely lost their minds. And this plays hand in hand with my point about the fact that the ordinary law-abiding citizen is a criminal and the criminals are fawned over in our society today. That's the caveat. That's the dynamic. Now let's look at this. It says New Jersey joins a list of states, including Florida and Vermont, who have enacted gun control legislation, right? Pat on the back, be happy, everybody's excited. They put in 6 points that are very interesting, and I want to read them all to you because, listen, it's very important to me what we do with our guns. Very important. Number 1, require mental health professionals to warn law enforcement if a patient threatens serious violence against themselves or others. All right, we know that that's a slippery slope. We know that that can be a dangerous thing. Number 2, and why am I bringing this up? Well, Papa Liberty told me about it. And it also plays into this idea of letting anyone you want into the nation. Because we are going to get to the topic of MS-13. We're going to get to the topic of the threats that really exist in this world. And a lot of people don't want to admit it. They'd rather not admit it. They'd rather say, well, I don't know, you might be, Yeah, I don't know about this MS-13. I think it's just a bunch of high school kids. Number 2, gun control, New Jersey. We thought it couldn't be. We thought it would never be. But some of these are pretty radical and nerve-wracking. Allow for an extreme risk protective order if a court deems someone possesses a significant danger to themselves or others. Temporary court order bars the subject from possessing or purchasing a firearm or ammunition. I think of any divorced man in history who maybe had enough and had an argument with their wife where they yelled at them. Extreme risk protective order if a court deems someone possesses a significant danger to themselves or others. It's a very dangerous and very slippery slope right there. Very dangerous. What that is to me and what that presents to me is it's a weapon.
Get ready for warm.
It's a weapon. That's what I hear. I don't know what that was. You can't go to a newspaper website anywhere without a video, without 17 pictures of people you don't care about, without pictures of a quiz and helicopters. Over 600 members of Jeff Sessions' church signed formal complaint against him. Listen, can I read the article? I'm just here. Washington Times. Fire half of your staff and become a legitimate website, or don't do the website thing at all, because it's a nightmare to come on here. And I gotta click, and if I click here to read the rest of the article, now watch this video to read the rest and meanwhile, while you're in the middle of reading the article, we're gonna throw a video up that's gonna pop up in the middle of it. I just want to read this one thing. Okay? Can you hold this shit website together for me? Please. Require background checks for private gun sales. You're not hurting my feelings with that one, I'm going to be honest with you. But the next one makes me want to puke up my lunch. Lower the magazine capacity from 15 rounds to 10 with an exception for a popular 22 caliber rifle. Okay. What are we doing here? What are we doing here with this magazine capacity mania? Lunacy. The lunacy with the magazine capacity is enough to drive me crazy. Why? Because if I want to take 10 round magazines for my Glock or Glocks and put them on a belt, what do I have? You do the math. Right? It takes anybody who shot a gun a few times seconds to reload that magazine. But it's not a 30 round, one big, scary 30 round magazine. Okay. So I have 5 10 round magazines. If you want to do anything about this, you have to find the people, help the people, stop the people. Well, I did a whole show on it, all right? I don't need to go down the path of how to fix the issue that people say has to do with guns. Because you can call the United Kingdom and ask them about their issue that they have with knives. Very similar. Very similar issues. Oh, no, you can't buy a knife in the UK. Oh, no, you can't order a knife online. There's going to be a capacity of knives. You're only allowed to have 10, not 15 knives. You have maniacs in society. We need to figure out how they get to that level. Maybe some are born that way, but I have to imagine that some aren't. I have to imagine that we've created a life that's so cushy and so simple for everyone that they can't find their way and they can't find satisfaction. And if you're out there and you're listening, satisfaction show, and it'll be work. You have to work. It'll be work. But I can guarantee you it'll give you some sort of meaning in this world. All right? Some sort of meaning. Number 5, require residents to show a justifiable need to get a carry permit. Because we permit carry, concealed carry, folks. Those sons of bitches are the worst of them all. Require residents to show it. Imagine the Bill of Rights being written with the idea of a justifiable need. Well, let's make sure we have a justifiable need. Justifiable need! We'll get to the justifiable need. here in a minute. We'll talk about the deal. None of the bills are signed today will make anyone safer, said Scott Bach, executive director. These people are appeasing some strange group of people who have come together and decided, in their lunacy, understandable emotional distress, following some of the most things that have ever happened in this nation, these school shootings. They've decided, rather than figure out the right path to take, the hard path to take, well, we'll take the easy path. We'll attack the guns. No one has. Yeah, only the people who really love guns or really need guns, or the. This is where we stand, folks. This is where we stand in this nation. And if you think that this is some sort of standout jersey and it won't come and affect your world, well, I don't know what to tell you. For in your whole existence on this planet, there's any one thing that you fight for, it has to be, right? Because number 2 protects number 1. And if you look at all, and it's a chisel job, it's an erosion job, it's a slow, terrifying erosion. Look, now the Washington Times website has frozen my whole computer. You are putting out a trash product with your website. You've got so much sponsored content and videos and crap that it literally has frozen the computer. The whole recording probably is muffled now and ruined. Look at it. Everything is frozen. Website, this terrible. When I first started my blog, I said I'm not going to put a bunch of ads all over my blog because it looks terrible. And I look at it and what is it? It's terrible. Let's pause for a moment so I can reflect and find my center. Oh. Yeah, I really do. I hate to drop these bombs on you, but the truth of the matter is this is what's going on in reality. You know, you may feel like it all paid off. I had a good year from my hat says best dad ever or whatever it says, but listen to me. There is so much work ahead. Okay? There is so much work ahead. Let me read you the inscription here on the inside, the warning label on the inside of my book, Community. By reading this book, you are taking on responsibility. You will absorb your personal share of blame for the nation's condition. You will no longer be able to point fingers at talking heads, politicians, and presidents. By reading this book, you will finally be faced with answers. You'll be faced with the power of the individual. Once you have seen this information, there's no going back. Your actions or inactions will forever affect this nation. That's where we sit, folks. The cat's out of the bag. We know what the monsters are up to. We know where they are. We know where they're hiding. We know what the game plan. We know everything now. We know everything. The Great Awakening is over. Now the question becomes, how do we battle back? How do we battle back? Can we make the hard decisions, or do we just stay on the easy path until we're eaten up like Skittles? I'm trying to bring up an article here from another news website that's probably going to crash my computer. Maybe I'm going about this wrong. Maybe I'll just copy and paste the link and see if I can handle that. How would you solve the border crisis? You want a question? How would you solve the crisis at the border? Do you ask yourself these things, or do you just yell? Do you just tweet mean things to one side or the other? Do you just tweet mean things to the liberals or mean things to the conservatives? Or do you sit down at the edge of your bed with your head in your hands and say to yourself, how do we fix this border situation? How do we fix this Mexico? So what do we do here? What's the deal here? Do you ever do that? Or do you just play the talking point thing? You look at what color bobblehead you have up and you say, okay, go team go. Go team go. Let them come in the nation. For God's sakes, let them in. What have they ever done to you? It's a very interesting thing to contemplate. But I don't know how many people are even contemplating it. They just look at Yahoo News and they go, I'm upset too. So here I am, my newspaper, the Richmond Times-Dispatch. I don't read it, but it's the one that's closest to me. Virginia's news leader. Ads everywhere. Publix ad. Heart-pounding thrills. Editorial. MS-13 is not just a right-wing plot. So I just want you to understand the path thus far. We started with the realization, and I know MS-13 is not from Mexico, but we started from the realization that Mexico's falling apart. Politicians are being slaughtered in the streets, and the nation is dying because all the power, all the vitality, all the serum of Mexico is coming to America to make a living. Because for 30 years, we've had politicians say, hey, it's really tough over there in Mexico. Why don't you come here? We'll get you on welfare, we'll get you back on your feet, and you can live a good life with us Americans. Okay. Everybody clapped. Hey, it's great. Yes, we're saving the world as usual. America stepping in to save the world. Well, something always gets weak when America gets strong. That's one of the tough things when it comes to internationality. Is that a word? I don't know. But when it comes to how we interfere internationally, when America gets strong, something gets weak. That's just the way of the world, right? That's Newton. I didn't make it up. So we step in and we start pulling people from Mexico and telling them come here. And, oh, wow, this is kind of nice. I can come here and work under the table and send money back to my kids. Not a bad deal. And then you find out, okay, now the nation's falling apart because we've taken all the men. None of them are serving as police. Everyone's been bought off, and those who they can't buy off, they're killing in the streets. Then we talk about gun control, right? Because do we want to see America devolve into a time where politicians are being murdered in the streets? Well, we can look back to Rand Paul getting attacked in his front yard. We can look back to the shooter who took shots at the GOP folks at the, the baseball game. And then it gets even deeper when you talk about your gun rights. We need to make sure that there's a justifiable need for that concealed carry permit, Mr. Walton. Quote, is MS-13 overtaking a middle school in MD? The question comes not from a Donald Trump tweet or some right-wing blog, but from the front page of a recent Washington Post. The story reports on the situation at William Wirt Middle School in Riverdale, Maryland. Gang-related fights, quote, are now nearly daily occurrence at Wirt, where a small group of suspected MS-13 members throw gang signs, sell drugs, draw gang graffiti, and aggressively recruit students recently arrived from Central America. The situation inside the aging, overcrowded building has left some teachers so afraid that they refuse to be alone with their students. Nor is Wirt unique. Dozens of schools from Northern Virginia to Long Island to Boston are dealing with a resurgence of MS-13, which has been linked to a string of grisly killings throughout the country. This is real. This is real. He ends the article. Is that the end of the article? Yeah, he ends the article essentially with immigration is not just a net gain for the U.S., but a vital infusion of fresh talent and perspectives. Immigrants, both legal and illegal, consistently commit less crime than native-born Americans, but that does not mean that every foreign-born person in the U.S. is a saint. And pretending that MS-13 is a non-problem just because Republicans say otherwise is the epitome of knee-jerk partisan cheerleading. Listen. And he's got several stories that are cited in the Washington Post here. Heinous and violent MS-13's appeal to girls grows as gang becomes Americanized. MS-13 is taking over the school, one teen warned before she was killed. He was flashing gang signs on Facebook. It got him killed by MS-13. Another headline. She helped rescue young men from MS-13, then she covered up a gang murder. And a final, alleged MS-13 member known as the Grandpa is accused of extorting Langley Park residents. Listen, we want your guns. We're going to let anybody in the nation we want. We're going to keep the families together. Everyone's going to go to bed at night happy. And then when the door gets kicked in, you're on your own. When the doors get kicked in, you're on your own. You know why? Why are you on your own? Because ordinary citizens are criminals. And criminals are fawned over in America. That's the theme of the show if you haven't caught it yet. Right? You're a gun owner? Good, responsible gun-owning citizen, concealed carry permit. You walk around the town and say hi to everybody, and you're nice to everybody, and, you carry a gun so you know that if something like the London Bridge attack, wherever there happened, and some filthy monsters from the beginning of time come at you with machetes, that you can shoot them in the chest and end their life, their pitiful, terrible little reign. Well, my friend, you're part of the problem. You're one of these gun owners. You're one of these people you're just part of the problem. Ordinary citizens are criminals, and criminals are fawned over. How would you solve the border crisis? Listen, I don't have much more to do today. I hope you're enjoying the show as it goes. The reviews are up at YouTube, SHTF Preparedness Gear Reviews. Search it, look at it, check out the Preparedness review. There's an Arthos survival knife review going up any minute now. And if you like the show, if you like the host, if you like the content, if you like prepping and survival, then you're going to like these reviews. Pretty much plain and simple. You're getting unbiased reviews from your host on gear that I chose to review, right? This is gear that I looked at and I said, man, this looks like this could be it. And either it is it or it's not it. And I'm honest about it. All right, and I'll tell you what's wrong with it, and I'll tell you whether or not I think you should get it or not. I think some of the pieces of gear have a place for everybody. And, there are people out there who aren't going to benefit from it. But if you like gear reviews, you like that sort of thing, SHTF Preparedness Gear Reviews, search it in YouTube and bring up that thing. I'll probably put something on the website with a link too, and I'll probably put a link in the show description below also, just so you guys can go there and subscribe, because we've got tons of stuff coming up in regard to these reviews as I swig a coffee at 2:47 p.m. I'm on this slow drip of caffeine. That could have a lot to do with this show also, right? It's been that way for a while, though. I've sort of fallen in love with the coffee. I'm hooked. I'm addicted. Coffee's a drug. There's no getting around it. You cannot deny the fact that this stuff in this cup next to me is a drug. I wake up thinking about it. I go to bed thinking about it. I slap my wrist because it's 7 p.m. at night. Sometimes I'm like, man, coffee right now would be great. But I know it'll keep me up till 1 in the morning. But then you get you stay up till 1 in the morning. Cool, that's good. Now I have a reason to wake up and brew a nice big cup of coffee and get my day started. Folks, the MHA Bushcrafter is a sponsor of the podcast. Go to my website, scroll down, you can see the kit. If you go to my YouTube page, you can see me review the kit, right? I Am Liberty Show, search it in YouTube, and you'll see it's one of the first videos that's up there. It's part of my pack, it's part of my loadout. It is a legitimate survival kit if you're looking to buy one for yourself or get someone into adventure or exploration, hiking, whatever it is. This kit will take care of you when you're out in the wild, okay? The MHA Bushcrafter. Check it out today at my website, or you can just search MHA Bushcrafter at Amazon, and that'll bring it right up too. So, can we tone it down just for a moment? I've got some things that I want to do. Another question for you, and I've got a very interesting article of I want to call it the article of the week, but I'm going to do another article of the week tomorrow on the live show. So I'll be live tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at PrepperBroadcasting.com. Don't miss that. That's a very important situation. Really, probably my best 2 hours of the week go into that show. But I've got a cool article on gut microbiome health. about a diet rich in fermentable fiber, inulin, associated with short-chain fatty acids, and how it affects your immune response and your immune system. Look, Healthy Americans is a pillar, okay? We got to talk about health. You might hate it, you might not be healthy, and you might not want to think about getting healthy. If that's the case, guess what? You didn't pay a penny for this episode of the I Am Liberty Show, so turning it off will have no effect on you whatsoever, and most likely not have any effect on me either. Feel free to knock that out if that's in your wheelhouse. I've got a question for you, and it's one that I've thought about. And it's a knee-jerker, right? Because a lot of people have a knee-jerk reaction to this. The nation is made up of about 15 to 18% African Americans who have given us some of the most incredible things, right? No getting around that. There's no getting around what the African American population has given to this nation, right? You can look back, you can talk about 200 years ago, or you can talk about 5 years ago, whatever it is. And there's something to be said. You know, a lot of times you read articles and you read tweets and you say, okay, these people are being outlandish and they're being crazy. And for a long time, I didn't even know what Juneteenth was. I had no idea. You know, you never heard about it in school or anything like that. I mean, you heard about that date, but not this idea of celebrating Juneteenth. And people on Twitter are bringing up this idea that maybe we should celebrate as a nation. And they also bring up another very interesting question, which is, why aren't people celebrating it? And that could be because it's new, and that could be because history sucks most of the time for people in school, so they don't even know what it is, let alone why it is, and the whole thing, right? This idea. But for those of you who don't know, we're talking about the day that basically that slavery was ended by pen, right? The day that it was ended, the day that, I think it's broken down specifically to the day that Texas slaves got word that slavery had come to an end. Correct me if I'm wrong. But it brings up an interesting thing. This idea that it is one of the most monumental days in the history of America. I don't know how that rubs you. I don't know if you're too busy to even think about it or consider it, but I've thought about it and considered it. I looked at it and I said, okay, how should I feel about this? How do I feel about this? We have too many holidays already. And then I said to myself, this is a big one. This is a big one here, right? This is one of those outstanding days in American history. And I thought to myself, there is something to be said about a nation that hardly makes a peep about the fact that slavery had come to an end in this nation by law. I don't know what to tell you. But I feel like it's probably something worth flying our flag over, don't you? How do you feel about it? It's probably something worth flying our flag over, and who's going to be hurt? You know, one woman said something very interesting. She said, what am I doing at work on my Independence Day? Now, I didn't like the phrase Independence Day. All right, but I could see how it could be understood like that. And to be honest, I think there's a conversation to be had around celebrating Juneteenth. What are your thoughts? I want you to think about this. I want you to ponder this. What are your thoughts on Juneteenth? And if you outright say to yourself, no, that's ridiculous, why would we celebrate that? I think you need to think about it a little more. I think you need to really sit down and think about American history and decide to yourself what it is we prioritize in this nation, what we call a holiday and what we don't. Because I can tell you right now, it's something that we are all pretty damn proud about, right? This idea that slavery has been outlawed in the Americas. It's not something that's allowed in the United States of America. That's kind of a big deal, right? Why are we glossing it over? It's too political, right? Is it too political? And if it's too political, what does that mean? Celebrating Juneteenth. It's question number 2 on the day. The first one was, how would you solve the border crisis? I got a client highlight here I was thinking about doing, but I don't think I'm going to because the show's gone over. I'll tell you about them. Outdoors Time. Check them out. OutdoorsTime.com. Check them out. Long-standing client of mine. Great outdoors website. Selling products, blog, yada, yada, yada. If you're into the outdoors, you're into adventure, check them out. OutdoorsTime.com. Now let's talk about the article of the day, I guess, not of the week. I can't call it the article of the week. And we're going to go out on this note, okay? Because I'm done screaming. I'm done getting all upset about the fact that it all seems to be pointing to a perfect path of what? Collapse, destruction, anarchy. You know how it goes. You know all the things that let you know the holidays are here. Listen to me. Let's take a break on that. You know, for those of you who know, you're already taking action. If you don't know, listen to the I Am Liberty show. Go read the articles. You'll quickly come to understand that, yes, there is a path that you need to take ASAP. Yes, you need to take the mindset of a prepper. Whether you don't like that word or whether you think that word means people with gas masks and AK-47s, I don't know what to tell you. But for me, prepping has been a most amazing journey, and it's a word that's been demonized, and I have to imagine that the word will either evolve or it'll be welcomed back into society. That's the case. Because the case is, Hawaii's spitting out gems all over the island, last I checked. The lava in Kilauea is getting hotter and hotter and still destroying whatever parts of the island. Right? Mother Nature is a bitch. That's the reality. And she gets to be a bitch whenever she wants. There's basically nothing we can do about that. We also live on a giant space rock that's hurtling through space, spinning, running through asteroid belts, running through meteorite tails, rather. And at any moment, we can be smashed by one of these things that'll change our world forever. But outside of the fantastic, we also get hit by hurricanes, we get hit by civil unrest, we get hit by riots, we get hit by these things that happen all the time around us. Society's pretty stable, and we've been in a really peaceful time here in America for a long time. But man, it's hard for me to believe that it's going to be that way forever. It's hard for me to believe that we're going to have a whole lifetime of pleasantries. Especially since we can't even get along now. We can't even agree on what to do with people who are breaking the law in the nation. We can't agree what to do with people who are abiding by the law in the nation. What do we do about these gun owners with concealed carry permits? Well, clearly we need to do something. Right? Because there's something wrong with these fellers that need guns. That's the general consensus, it feels like, lately. Right, these guys with their guns, and it's a problem. You need to figure out an answer. These no good, rotten, stinking gun owners. I'm trying to bring an article up here, and I'd love to read it to you, but it looks like it's going to just fail me here. Oh no, here we go. Here we go. I love Rhonda Patrick's website, foundmyfitness.com. It's got like a cool Reddit-style board where you can upvote news and that type of thing. A diet rich in fermentable fiber, inulin, and associated short-chain fatty acids protects mice against influenza. Why is this important? You have to eat fruits and vegetables. There's no getting around it, right? There's this new thing that's out. It's called a carnivore diet, where people are just eating meat. Let's read. The effects of dietary fiber on a host's innate immune response are thought to be mediated at a local and systemic level via short-chain fatty acids. Previous preclinical research has shown that mice that consume a diet high in fermentable fiber are protected against allergic airway inflammation through SCFAs, or short-chain fatty acids. However, underlying mechanisms are poorly understood. The fermentable fiber, right, and all that means, fermentable fiber is just, the fibrous material that make up fruits and vegetables when you don't juice them, when you eat them whole. The fermentable fiber, inulin, and short-chain fatty acids exert beneficial effects on the immune system, allowing mice to control influenza infections. This is part of the deal. I know it's mice. I know we're not mice. Blah, blah, blah. High fiber groups or cellulose control group. In order to explore the role of fermentable dietary fiber on antiviral immunity, mice were born and raised on a low-fiber diet supplemented with either inulin, which is the high-fiber group, or cellulose. Then the mice were exposed to the influenza A virus via a intranasal route. The mice fed a high-fiber diet showed prolonged survival and improved clinical score and enhanced lung elasticity, better lung function. Furthermore, high-fiber diet-fed mice were protected against influenza-induced tissue destruction and lethality. Supported by decreased myeloperoxidase activity, which contribute to inflammatory lung damage. These results show the protective effect of dietary fiber against influenza-induced immunopathology. So what the hell? What am I talking about? Really, this is an article that is kind of tough to read, and it's not super exciting, but there's a lot behind this study. Right? There's a lot behind this study because people always say you got to eat a healthy diet. You got to eat right. Right? You can't eat garbage. And if you eat garbage, there's repercussions. Okay, well, that's all very vague. It's undeniable that the things that make up vegetables and fruits are critical. They're critical. The fiber is one of them. And what I would argue is that the vast majority of them should just be eaten raw, washed and raw. And if you're trying to turn kids onto a diet like this, if you have a kid who you've been feeding juice boxes and processed foods their whole life, which my kids have had a balance of both. I'm definitely a balanced guy. Let me also talk about that since we're on the subject of health. It's not about cutting everything out of your life and living like some sort of monk. You know what I mean? But it's very much about balance, and you need to err on the side of healthy as much as you can. And the same has to be, said about your kids as well. And the best way that you can get them going is raw vegetables. Stop boiling and steaming vegetables and giving them to your kids. Don't do it. It's an automatic. Also, grow a garden. If you don't have a garden, if you can't set your kids loose on food that's growing in the yard, there's something missing. The connection does not get made, right? They see something that comes out of a plastic bag in the fridge and they bite it, and maybe they like it a little bit, but it's just not the same as when you walk out in the garden, you let them bury some seeds, and then a couple months later, they're, oh, look at this, a kale leaf. Try that kale leaf. You like that? Oh, I like that. Can I have another one? It's a big deal. It's so big for your kids, obviously, because it's boosting immunity to things like, the flu. But boosting immunity, it's also reducing inflammation. And we're going to learn a lot more about inflammation, mark my words, as time goes on. I always wonder about, people who have high inflammation. They all have problems with going to the bathroom. They all have problems with injuries. They have problems with, arthritis. Inflammation is nuts. And I think one day we're going to find out what kind of effect inflammation has on the brain, and it's going to scare us. I really do. These hyperdepressives, maybe, I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. I'm just guessing here. But I'm saying if everything in your body is inflamed because you eat sugar and processed foods only, wouldn't it make sense that the brain is suffering in some way? And how could we measure which parts of the brain are being affected and why people are acting this way? How do we end a show like this? This is one of those shows that's all over the roadmap, and there's a lot of passion in it. It all comes down to one thing. We have to take care of ourselves. We have to take care of ourselves, and we have to pay attention to the goblins that are out there that are doing things that just aren't smart. They're doing things that just aren't smart. They're thinking in a way that is not productive and not helpful to society, and it's going to have lasting effects. And I'm talking about Second Amendment. I'm talking about immigration. I'm talking about how we deal with hardened criminals, how we deal with gang violence in this nation. Why are we importing gang violence into this nation? Because you'll pay the consequences. That's the thing you have to remember. You always have to remember. Nobody suffers the consequences of things like immigration and a radical attack on the Second Amendment like you. Nobody will suffer like you and me. Because we don't have security forces. We don't have, all this money to dedicate to keeping our kids in the very best of schools at the highest levels with the highest security and traveling, living in the safest parts of town. No. You got your hand. You know what your hand is. And you got to live with that hand. So don't be damned by people who don't even understand the game that you're playing, let alone the hand you've been dealt. Stay on top of it, right? And more importantly than anything, you really need to integrate the 4 pillars of the I Am Liberty show into your life, all right? We're going to talk about one of them live tomorrow night, right? We're going to talk about strong communities, healthy Americans, dynamic lifestyles, and of course, self-reliance and independence. It's all in there. It's all in there. Today's the day to make a change.